Welcome to the Agents of Innovation podcast, where we feature conversations with entrepreneurs, philanthropists, and artists. Welcome back to the Agents of Innovation podcast. I'm your host, Francisco Gonzalez, and we have a great guest here, a good friend of mine, Doug Pestana, who is the co-founder and CTO of LegalMente AI, and Doug is going to talk about all things AI. I hope if you have any kind of fears or anxieties about what's coming with AI, hope those fears are going to be put to rest today. But I don't know, maybe they'll be accelerated because this guy's deep into it. But before we get to Doug, I just want to remind you that you may be listening to the Agents of Innovation podcast on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. But this is also available on YouTube. So if you'd like to see me and Doug on YouTube, talk about all these great things, you can go over to our YouTube channel, just type in Agents of Innovation into the search bar, and you should find us pretty easily. Also, you know, a lot of times we have a lot of great guests on this podcast who are also featured innovators in the Fearless Journeys community, which is a community I set up a few years ago to help you not just listen, but also be part of the conversation and get some insight, help, advice, tips, and direct connections to many of these featured innovators through the Fearless Journeys community. And we've now elevated it to Fearless Journeys 2.0, so you can apply for membership in the community and get invited to a lot of great things we do both online as well as in person. We do some group dining experience, but also amazing group trips to lots of places. In fact, Doug was with us on one of our trips to Argentina last year. We'll talk a little bit about that, I think, on this episode. And but also, don't forget on the podcast, make sure you like, subscribe, share it with a friend, and comment. Let us know what you thought about this episode and other episodes. And the more likes, comments, subscriptions, everything that this podcast gets, more people will hear Doug's story and the story of all the other people on now more than 160 episodes of the Agents of Innovation podcast. So thanks for listening, and thanks for subscribing, and we hope to see you at fearlessjourneys.org. as well. So anyway, now we're going to get into a conversation here with Doug Pestana. Now, Doug is in Central Florida, and he is the co-founder and CTO, as I mentioned, of LegalMente AI, and also heads up the Remix Institute. And he's been in this AI space probably before most of us ever even knew what AI was or heard the words, but now it is ever-present, omnipresent. And actually, speaking of omnipresent, Doug's pretty omnipresent all over the world. So, Doug, welcome to the Agents of Innovation podcast.
Thanks, Francisco. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me here today.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So, you're home today, right? As we're recording this in Central Florida.
Yes, for now. We just wrapped up some travel on some business travel in Vancouver. Spent some time around that area, and then also came down to Utah to just kind of decompress. And Utah's always a great place to, in my opinion, is a good place to kind of fill up with new ideas, especially if you've been working for quite a while and you just kind of like need a place to reset. It's a good it's a good area to get new fresh ideas and become inspired to do the next thing.
Well, I've been to Utah a couple times. The Sundance. What do they call it? Just whatever that. It's not a park, but I've been there. I've been to Salt Lake City. But what I really need to get to, Doug, is some of those great national parks in the southern part of Utah, like Bryce Canyon and all that. So
Zion.
Need to plan some trips there.
For sure. Yeah. But yeah, I
well, Doug.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I think there's a little bit of a delay here, but hopefully the system will correct itself here. But Doug, tell me. So first of all, where were you born and raised, Doug? And tell me a little bit about your time growing up, as well as your early education, and maybe through college. Tell me a little bit about those steps.
Yeah, I was born in Florida. I was born in Panama City, but around the time I was 4 years old, I family moved around to a suburb in Tampa. So I pretty much was raised in Tampa most of my life. I went to school there. I went to university in the Tampa Bay area of Florida. And after I graduated, that's when I moved out of the Tampa Bay area But yeah, I mean, Tampa is a good place to visit, but as you're growing up, it can be a little bit sleepy in some of the suburb areas because there's a lot of driving that you have to do in some of those Tampa Bay suburbs. So you spend a lot of time, obviously, at home or hanging out with friends, and you have a lot of time to, um, kind of. I think at least in my education, I was able to spend a lot of time reading or like learning new things. When I was in school, I think that what I didn't realize is that I was in fifth grade I was passing all taking all these standardized tests and get really good math scores. And I didn't know anything about it at the time, but my mom would always keep those reports about how high marks I had in math. And then when I was in middle school, I got a math award for in the middle school had probably about like 300 students, right? So I got like the top math award. Again, I didn't think anything of it. And then obviously later on, as I'm progressing into my teenage years and adulthood, you start to see, oh, these are skills that are going to lend to my career in artificial intelligence, data science, analytics. But I wouldn't say you have to be good at math. You just really have to be good at critical thinking, problem solving, pattern recognition, and you can really get a good you get a good trajectory in AI, or at least understand the value of AI there. But it reminds me of a quote from Baltasar Gracian. He wrote a book in 1647. It's called The Art of Worldly Wisdom. And I mean, he basically said, cultivate your strengths, learn what those are early on, and then cultivate that. I mean, I wish I had learned that lesson sooner, so you knew like which lessons to hone or like which drills to really practice on as you're growing up. But you start to realize early on in your life what you're good at, and then later on it kind of compounds or manifests in your professional life.
Yeah, I love that. Hone your strengths. Know what they are, and hone them very well. And that's really good advice. And they could be different things at different parts of your life, but obviously there's usually going to be some consistent patterns. So you saw that. You go on and tell me. So you grew up in the Tampa Bay area, and tell me where'd you go to school, college, and what did you study there? Knowing that you were kind of on this trajectory now.
Well, yeah, it's kind of funny because when I was 18, even though I knew I was good at math, I didn't think, oh, let me go get a math degree or a computer degree and at the time, the term artificial intelligence was nowhere near mainstream. Artificial intelligence as a profession has been around since the 1950s. I think that's when the term first got coined. So there's been a lot of research for decades now, but obviously it's accelerated in the past 10 to or 15 to 20 years. When I was 18, I decided I wanted to become a physician. And what physician specifically was neurologist. And I think it just came down to my interest in the brain, in intelligence, and again, that still ties to the artificial intelligence. Because at this point, I'm not a neurologist. I didn't become a doctor. I didn't go to med school, but I am sort of helping code solutions that mimic human thought pattern, human reasoning. So that is, you'll even see it in my yearbooks from in my high school that they always have those little text snippets like what you want to do when you grow up, and everyone's like leaving quotes on the yearbook, and I showed mine like I'm going to become a neurologist. Let me go to medical school. But everybody wants to do something like that. But it was around like my sophomore year in college. I knew that it wasn't for me. But I majored in biology. There were some classes I did like. Surprisingly, I like botany. I like mycology. Then you start getting into like organic chemistry, not so much. Cellular biology, not so much. It wasn't very enthusiastic about it. And then probably around my sophomore year, the head of the math, I don't know, she was pretty senior, but she was like she was one of the heads of the mathematics department, and she's still there today. Dr. Monica Kiss. Shout out to her if she's listening to this one. But she just came up to me one day. She's like, "Hey, do you want to change your major to math?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about it," because at the time I'm like, I don't know if I really want to do biology. So I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good at math. Let's let's switch over to math. And she even said, like, you could still fulfill the requisites if you still want to go to medical school or something. You could still fulfill those requisites. But it didn't turn out that way. And at the time, everyone thinks that you only use a math degree to become a math teacher. And that's what everybody asked me is like when I was getting my degree in math, are you can become a math teacher? And I was doing a little bit of research, and for the most part, no, I didn't want to become a math teacher, but you could do things like become an analyst, you could become an actuary. Even in 2009, which is the year I graduated university, Wall Street Journal would put out lists of top most satisfied and happiest professions, and the number three on the list every single time was mathematician, statistician, and actuary. They've probably changed those titles since then, but it's just like, okay, it's a happy profession, so let me learn about it. By by luck, I would say I ended up I had my first job as a data analyst when I graduated college. I moved out to Las Vegas, Nevada, and within a few weeks, I knocked on some doors at HR departments and put my resume out there. I was really just kind of hustling because I kind of knew, like, you submit an online application, it doesn't go anywhere. So I had to kind of figure out, like, I just moved here, I got to get a job, or I can't pay the bills. So I got to go and, like, kind of go door to door at these casinos and ask what they have available. So by luck, I got a job as a data analyst for what was called Caesars Entertainment. It's been restructured since then, but back then they owned 8 casinos on the Las Vegas Strip, and one of those was Caesars Palace, of course. They were looking for They had a large analytics team, and they were specifically looking for guys that had statistics and mathematics background, because they wanted to start building statistical models to predict, player behavior, analyze their marketing and hotel operations, their gaming operations, and that sort of thing. So that's where I got my start. I thought it was pretty lucky. The terms data science and AI was not even mainstream back then. But those were the building blocks. I was building forecasting models. We were building predictive customer behavior models, all before it became known as AI.
That's great. Well, yeah, that's interesting because I was trying to think of the name of that movie where the guy goes into
21.
the is that what's called 21?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
where he's using predictive type of tech. Yeah, he's using, I don't know what you call it, predictive data or something like that to win in the casinos, right? And maybe I don't know, maybe the casinos are, by the time you're being hired as a data analyst, are they kind of maybe trying to get on the other side of that?
Well, you're not. No, actually, you're not allowed to. So yeah, you can learn card counting. It's not illegal. If the casinos would catch card counting, then of course they would blacklist you from the casino. But it's not like the movie where this is what I thought, because I'd watched those movies before I started work at the casino. I would watch Ocean's 11, even, like you would think like they have this sophisticated operation. They have eyes on the ground everywhere, and there's no amount of cheating that can get past the casino security. The reality is it's not what it is made out in movies. There's probably people still card counting, just able to keep it under wraps and still make money. But if you're an employee at one of those casinos, you're not allowed to game at the casino. We had data about payout, what the payout percentages were for some of the slot machines. So the payout percentages are not always the same. So if you worked at the casino, you had access to data, you could go up to the machines that pay it out more versus the other machines that don't. However, I will tell you, there's no secret advantage there. All the slot machines are tilted in the favor of the house. Even if you had the data in front of you and said this machine will pay out the most, in the long run, the casino always wins. The odds are always against you. So even if they allowed us to play at that property, I don't think any of that insider information would not bode me well. I would not be able to make a fortune.
Well, it's funny. The very first time I ever went to Las Vegas, we went on a family vacation. I was 20 years old. And so myself and my younger brothers, we couldn't partake in any kind of gambling, right? But the moment I knew that the house always, things are always in the favor of the house, it's just when I stepped foot on the Las Vegas Strip and I looked at these amazing hotels that are like the biggest hotels I've ever seen. Inside, very elaborate. There's amusement rides. There's all sorts of amazing shows, Broadway style shows, comedy shows, right? All these things, and I looked around and I was like, yeah, I think now I see all the people putting money into the slots, and I see people putting money on the tables, and I'm like, pretty sure I know how these hotels are built, and that basically set me on a course to never ever really be interested in gambling my money anyway. So, but as Clark Griswold said in Vegas Vacation, right, this country is built on a gamble, right? Everything is a risk, and gosh, fearless journeys, right? I mean, that's what it's all about. Being able to be bold and courageous, and sometimes you gotta take some risk and definitely be bold with some action, especially in the entrepreneurial space. So Vegas, in some ways, represents that.
Yeah, and also, on that theme of the fearless journeys aspect of this one, if what you also learn is if the odds are not in your favor, you figure out what can I do to put the odds in my favor. Why play a rigged game? So obviously being exposed to other people as part of your community and other entrepreneurs, they figured out how to hack a rigged game, and that's what I sort of like about, especially when we have these types of conversations, or when we do the book clubs, for example, just kind of getting exposed to different viewpoints and different ideas. Even some of the stories from your book, the American Dream is a terrible thing to waste. You're going to hear stories about people how they rigged life in their favor because the odds were stacked against them.
Yeah, and it's interesting you see that, because I think you and I, share. I know you and I share a similar philosophy about, free markets and rule of law and individual liberty and these types of things. So when you actually look at the place where entrepreneurship flourish the most, where innovators flourish the most, in the world, in history, is right here in the United States of America, and there's a reason for that, right? And it's in those sorts of settings that we do that, versus systems that are so rigged. Now, it doesn't mean things aren't rigged, right? There's nothing's perfect even here in the United States. But what I always like to say, and I kind of said this, I think, at the beginning of the book you just cited, is no matter the system that's against you, right? Whatever it is, hopefully it's as free and fair as possible for every person. That's why people migrate to the United States from all over the world. But even if it's not, entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurial mind will find a way, right? I mean, you could see every time, like, there's a new regulation, whether it's a tariff or like whatever, the entrepreneur is just, okay, how do we navigate around this, right? Yes, tariffs and whatever kind of regulations, taxes, everything, these sort of things make the life of a business person, an entrepreneur, more complex to deal with, right? Every time we got to sit there and we got to deal with our taxes and the huge tax code and what's deducted and what's not and all these sorts of things. And I got to hire a CPA and all these sorts of things, maybe hire some lawyers, all these sorts of things to get around these things. Yet, so it takes time, and we wish it didn't take time, but the entrepreneurial mind finds its way, right? Maybe, Doug, this is a good segue into helping us be more efficient with our time, because now we have a lot more tools at our disposal, and mostly to a lot of great innovators like yourself that work in this space, that give us opportunities to make our time more efficient, our work more efficient. So you got into, we just heard your background in terms of your education, your first role going out to Vegas as a data analyst at a casino. So you're interested in this space. Where do you migrate to be more of a problem solver, and how does that take you into the space of AI?
Yeah, so just as I'm going up in my career, I'm thinking more as AI is just a job to do, right? I get to build these models for this. This is my project of the day, it's my task of the day. But later on, I start to realize, like, these aren't projects. We're building algorithms. We're building models that are helping people make decisions faster and more efficient. And that was the thing back in the day, that it was called decision support. Some teams were called decision support. And it's just basically data help me support my decision making. And so there's some automation. Um, there was some automation behind that, like, hey, build this report to help automate these KPIs so I know what's going on, and that gives you a view of the past and gives you a view of history, but it doesn't help you predict the future. And that's where the AI layer came in. It's like I can help you predict the future. I can help you do these tasks that you don't even know to do next, instead of you just being fatigued by trying to compute all of that in yourself in your head and form those decisions. That's when I really start to be like, that's the real value of machine learning. And at the time, building those machine learning and predictive models, I started out building, literally thousands of time series forecasts. They're called time series forecasts. Where you're trying to predict out from the future. As an example, in the casino, we had to build time series forecasts to predict how many customers were going to be eating at their F&B outlets, how many people were going to be at the buffet, how many people would get the restaurants, and that helped the F&B managers be like, if I know that information in advance, that helps me staff my operations properly. If I'm only looking at historical data, stuff that you've reported. You've built this automated report for me to see. I can only see what's in the past and maybe make some type of prediction in the future in my head. But the algorithm, now the AI is able to like, we'll make that prediction for you. And it's going to be reliable. And it's going to be accurate. You can trust it. So I started building those types of models, machine learning models to not just predict like those types of counts, but also machine learning models to predict what a player is going to do next or what a customer is going to do next. And again, it's another decision-making automation. I started to get into like this is like mid 2010s. You start to get into this, like, actually this is cognitive automation. It's decision-making automation. We have tons of tools at our disposal for automating processes or automating, you go to a kiosk and order things that are at a restaurant, for example. You're typing in, that automates the job of a person instead of them having to take the order. But now AI is like, let me help you automate the cognitive part, the decision making part. Let me give you ideas that you never thought about, and also let me give you some predictions that you would never have anticipated. So that's where I started to get that mindset in 2015. That's kind of led me to here, where the problems are with AI. With AI helps you. I think many problems as entrepreneurs face, or even people they think about becoming an entrepreneur. It's like, what do I do next? Like, help me chart out my steps. Again, very valuable for AI to help with that. AI can start giving you ideas, suggestions, help you if you choose a certain path or choose a certain market, what would be your outcome. So that's been the promise of AI right now, is not necessarily automating away jobs, but start to automate some of that high cognitive load that you have and high frequent decisions. We're making thousands of decisions a day, and that uses mental energy. It uses physiologically you're getting drained by making those many decisions a day. So can you start delegating some of that decision making to the AI, and as a result you'll become a more empowered human. It's going to give AI is going to give superhuman abilities for people who are using it. And I know you talked about it early in the beginning of the segment, not to be afraid of AI. A lot of people are afraid it's going to take jobs. I think it's the best approach is like, learn it now, learn how it can help you, learn how it can make you superhuman, because the people that do adopt that mindset are the ones that are going to thrive in this new age of AI.
Yeah, that's really good advice. It's interesting. A few things picking up on there. I think it's really interesting the difference you point out between just simply machines that automate things, right? I'm thinking about as simple as a dishwasher, right? It's called a dishwasher for a reason, because there's actually a person who's a dishwasher, right? And so now we can put our dishes into the dishwasher. Maybe one day I won't even have to put them from the sink to the dishwasher. There'll be like some robot that will, Judy the robot or whatever will come and actually put them in there for me and put them back into the cupboard for me afterwards, and maybe even put the plate on my now, right, we have microwaves and ovens and all these sorts of things that do things that we used to have to do. And you think about the evolution of human history. And I was just having a conversation with a friend earlier today, actually, about travel and how he likes to travel a lot, I like to travel a lot, and we were talking about just the crazy world we're living in, that how a machine like an airplane can take you in just a couple hours from one country to another. You could be, having breakfast in Istanbul, Turkey, and in the afternoon you could be hiking in the mountains in Italy, and actually for relatively inexpensive. So we were talking about, so I said, hey, it's interesting. And Doug, I think you probably get these questions from people too that see you travel so much and say, how can you afford to travel, right? How could you, both from your time and expense? And I'm like, my answer to that is, it's the cheapest time ever in the world to travel right now than it's ever been in terms of time and expense. Like, to go across the ocean, a few hundred years ago, not even that long ago, I'd have to take, a boat. Maybe it would take me a few months or at least a week or two, in maybe semi-modern times, more modern times. And then my day one of my vacation starts after, traveling across the ocean, right? And that's hopefully I didn't get sick or there wasn't a storm, and we didn't have weather that predicted things. Now we have like planes rerouted around weather storms, for the most part, and all sorts of things. Lots of things in the plane that maybe there's sensors that tell you not to take off. There's going to be a problem. So machines are doing so much incredible things, but also I think the biggest thing is our time, and what you're saying there with becoming more superhuman and empowering yourself more. So what's interesting to me though, going from just the fact that machines do things for us, maybe automate things, but we're moving now to a predictive nature of the machine learning and adapting and moving forward. So that's, to me, that's the more like, what's the word, like just basically, I guess for some people maybe it could be the scary thing, or even just the more curious thing, like the more like unknown. Let's just put it that way. The more unknown thing is like, what does that mean? Because to be predictive, and you kind of pointed out a little bit here with the casino, right? Predicting, using past data, inputting that to predict, hey, how many people do I need to staff at this restaurant today, in this casino at this hour? Maybe not going to be 100%, but it's going to be pretty darn more accurate than like a human predicting that. So yeah, moving to the predictive matter, and how will that maybe help us be superhuman even more?
Yeah, so I always say that automation right now, and this is just the prevailing technology right now, is that automation is reactive, not proactive. So when we're building an automated system, you're trying to automate a known process, and that known process could be, dishwasher, for example. You're automating the known. You've got it needs to wash the dishes. What the dishwasher is not able to automate for is the things that are unknown. What happens if the dishwasher floods? Like, the dishwasher isn't going to automatically clean it up for you, because it couldn't anticipate that. It was not programmed to predict or handle that event. So even with generative AI right now, for example, it is predicting known knowns, and has not been able to predict the unknowns. And when it does is when you start to get, you start to delve into you hit across that border of the singularity, where the AI is able to think as efficiently as a human. So, as an example, we all are aware as humans that AI is going to create new jobs, right? But we kind of have some vast or some superficial knowledge of what those new jobs will be. But there have been some people who've been able to predict very accurately, like humans, like, hey, if these events happen in the global economy, or even just in the domestic economy, then here are the downstream impacts. So humans are really good at that, about saying, we know what new work is going to be formed. I don't need to necessarily be programmed on something. I don't need to be reactive to an event to then understand what's going to happen in the future. Humans are really good at that. So I think that's where AI is going to start to get much better at predicting on its own, even if you hadn't asked it. With predictive modeling, you still have to tell the AI, I need you to predict this event. I need you to predict that. In retail, for example, a big thing is they want to predict a customer's probability to churn. You still have to tell the algorithm, go look for this event, go search for this event. Tell me, predict if they're going to churn in the future, but you're still guiding the AI to know what to look for. I think some of the AI systems will advance to a point where like, oh, we're able to predict that this person is going to churn, but here are some other things that you should be aware of if that person is going to churn, right? Or if this many customers are going to churn, and here's some ways to bring them back without you necessarily asking them. So, and when I kind of think about like how well if they're going to not just replace human labor and automate human labor that's tedious and manual and time consuming, but can also cognitively think through and reason through a process as well, then where do we stand? What is our competitive advantage as humans? And I don't think you should just disassociate man and then machine in that point. You start to think about like, how do I integrate those superhuman capabilities into myself, like into my daily habits. So I think just being right now the best thing that you can do, because I can't give you this 50-year futurist outlook. The best thing you could do is just use the AI tools on a daily basis. Do not shy away from it. Eventually, when new technologies come out, you will not be so far behind of the curve. You're like, oh, I've been using AI in my daily processes in this manner. Therefore, this new technology comes out. Oh, it's a very simple gradient for me to just adopt that next layer. You don't want to get to a point where it's like some. I'll just say, like, I'll give an example. My dad's not very technologically savvy. I think he just kind of stopped learning new technologies decades ago, right? And he wasn't really good at adopting the internet or adopting the smartphones. And it kind of shows like right now in his activity. He's just very tech illiterate. But that's because he decided, you're not going to adopt these new technologies, and as a result, you kind of pay for it not next year, but like 20 years from now. So if you're not using the AI technology now and getting familiar or accustomed with it, and you wait until 20 years to do it, you're going to be way behind everybody else. That's when you get displaced. That's when you get sort of marginalized in society because you don't have the correct skill sets. You can't adapt to new changes. So it's not even, you're not supposed to even just do this grand AI reskilling. It's the smallest gradient that you can perform is just use something like ChatGPT or use, Para from LegalMente AI. Very basic building blocks, so you get used to it, get accustomed to it, in the same way that people started picking up the smartphone in 2007 and just started playing around. It didn't have anywhere near the capabilities that the smartphones today have. But if you decided not to use smartphones in 2007, decided to pick it up today, you would be at a huge learning loss. You would not be able, it would take you way too long to get past that learning curve. So you don't want to get in that place with AI because it's a much more advanced way. Creating that analogy for smartphones is not a good. It's magnitudes higher with AI. You don't want to be too far behind. It's just better to just adopt small tools today, and that prepares you to become superhuman in the future.
Yeah, that's great. Well, look, it's also in a sense, you talked about onboarding ourselves with the internet, right? Getting that email address, right? I mean, this is something in around the 90s that started happening. I would say even before we got the smartphones, we got things like Yahoo and Google search was like on another level. And I just remember like that happened for me when I was somewhere grad school. My first real memory of that Google search just by the way, it's so interesting too because it almost looks like what ChatGPT looks like now, right? In a sense where it's like just kind of blank. There's not a lot of ads. Like Yahoo was just crazy with like there was 100 links everywhere, right? But there was still like that search bar. But anyway, that was the beginning of going from the card catalog in the library, in a sense, or the newspaper, to I just go to this one website and basically I can learn everything pretty fast. Now it's like ChatGPT, Grok, all these other ones that you're talking about that you could do that. So now these are some things for us common users, us that are really kind of like, I was never anywhere near a math major or a physics major or biology or neurology or any of this stuff. I'm in the history fields, maybe interested in these sorts of things. Obviously, I now teach some economics, and I'm interested in entrepreneurship and innovation. So, this other world that you're including as it translates to computers, computer languages, coding, all these sorts of things, that ain't for me. Okay, I'm the common user of a say ChatGPT, but I can integrate it into my work.
Mm-hmm.
And gosh, I've even I'm going to give a little. I mean, just very recently, I've noticed how phenomenal ChatGPT is, for example, at creating travel itineraries. And you got to push it a little bit, right? You can't just finish with like the first thing it gives you, right? Like, oh, okay, great, take it and run. No, no, no. I push back on ChatGPT. Like, no, no, no. I don't want to do that. I want to do this on my trip, or tell me this. With these kind of restaurants, I'm going to go to this city. Tell me 3 restaurants. Oh no, like what about another one? And by the way, I noticed that ChatGPT, broadly macro gets a lot of things right. Micro gets a lot of things wrong. So it still has a lot of learning to do, or at least it's not as accurate as it should be. But it's still phenomenal, and just getting used to that daily process. Now, Doug, I want to go from that, encourage everybody to get used to all those tools that you can use for all the things you do personally, professionally, whatever. Make yourself more efficient with your time. All right, we could all do that. But now let's get into what you're doing with it as a business, LegalMente. What is LegalMente, and why did you start it?
Yeah, I'm gonna start out just one thing I want to bring out because on that last point, and maybe I'll talk about it once a little bit more. But um, what we've noticed with LegalMente AI usage activity is we do get some people who are dabbling in it. So I'm glad that they are curious enough that they are starting to use the AI technology. But in your case, I would say, Francisco, you'd be surprised that even just you spending that time with ChatGPT and molding it and spending that extra time to get those is what most people do not do. They just send in one prompt. The average size of that prompt that we've seen in LegalMente AI is 10 words. So it's not a very detailed prompt. It's like a very not too much. And then they get a response back. And if the AI does not satisfy that user's subjective expectations, they're like, AI's crap. I'm out of here. Why are we using this like tool? So you gotta be a little bit more patient with it, and you can't toss it out the window because of like one bad experience. You have to, like you said, you have to keep playing around with it and get it to work for you. So LegalMente AI, obviously, just the quick and short of it, it's an AI paralegal for U.S. and global startups, entrepreneurs, small businesses, even individuals who cannot afford high legal costs. They just, maybe they're not a well-funded startup. Maybe they're just getting started. Lawyers are expensive in the United States, as we all know. President Trump is making Made in America policies, so it's causing a lot of international companies to want to do business in the U.S. and they don't know how to navigate U.S. laws, and certainly don't have the money for U.S. attorneys. So this is what LegalMente helps solve: is that if you talk with our AI paralegal and engage with our AI paralegal, she will help you reduce your legal costs. She'll be able to do provide legal help at a much lower rate at a monthly subscription fee versus spending hundreds of dollars an hour on a lawyer when your legal bill could all of a sudden be thousands of dollars for something pretty simple as like, could you draft me a consulting a consulting contract, or have me draft a non-disclosure agreement, or have this review non-disclosure agreement. So that's what it's able to do. And the whole purpose of it is, like, I'm not trying to put the plug in for LegalMente, but the whole purpose of it is to eliminate those roadblocks that we talked about for an entrepreneur to figure out where, as entrepreneurs are going to be hit with, lots of obstacles, and this is what the entrepreneurial mindset is. How do I get around that obstacle? What's something I can do? And using AI technology helps with that. If legal costs or access to legal assistance becomes a blocker for you, then this is a hack for an entrepreneur to be like, okay, I'm going to get around this obstacle by leveraging AI. Now, you could use ChatGPT, you could use Gemini, you could use a lot of these tools, but ours is, specific to the legal domain. Our AI is trained uh, on legal domain expertise. The founder CEO is a Harvard lawyer, a Harvard graduate, and he has his own law firm. We also have a patent on the AI so that it is specialized in legal tasks. So that's what we're just trying to do is like, hey, we realize this is an obstacle for you. Let us help you lift that blocker. Use our AI to help with that, and then you can subsequently use other AI tools to help you get along their journey. So that's the offering, the value proposition we give to customers. But for me, I also have to think about at a startup that's under a shoestring budget, we have to think about how we keep costs low but still run as fast as other competitors with more funding, more employees, and that sort of thing. And that's where AI becomes the equalizer for that. AI can help automate not just legal, business tasks, marketing tasks, operations tasks. We have internal AI agents that we built specific for LegalMente to automate some of the work that we do here, so that every employee and every member of the LegalMente AI team can throughput 10 times more instead of just hiring, 10 times more personnel. So it's giving us a greater throughput on every hour and unit of work. So that's how we're using AI internally, and then that's how we're trying to broadly make this accessible to other people.
That's great. Well, I love it on many different levels. And first of all, something you talked about kind of at the beginning here of this part of the conversation. You mentioned there's a lot of legal documents, a lot of a lot of lawyers, right? I always kind of say this, like, for example, this week I went to the doctor, right? I'm like, I can't, it's the same doctor I went to last year. Oh, we're updating our consent forms, right? So you go through like 15 pages of consent forms, you sign. Do you really, does the average person really read? Okay, I mean, I kind of skim, read. I mean, I would be in there for 2 hours if I read everything. So they know you're not reading everything, and they're even highlighting where you need to sign an initial. Just fill this in. Don't worry about the rest, right? But anyway, it's just emblematic to me. And by the way, I travel a lot in Latin America. I might sign one form somewhere, maybe, right? Like consent. I think this is like I always tell people, we have too many lawyers in the U.S. But again, sometimes, that's not a bad thing, right? Because the lawyers are there to protect you on another angle as well, right? But I think sometimes you just have all this paperwork, this like it just seems so bureaucratic. So therefore, by the way, lawyers create the need for more lawyers, right? So we have a lot of lawyers, a lot of law schools. Law schools are expensive for people to go to. They come out expecting good jobs, all these sorts of things. But sometimes we also skip actually getting a lawyer for a lot of reasons because we can't afford it. It's not just that we're now going from need the lawyer to going to go ahead and skip the lawyer and use AI. Sometimes people would never go to the AI as a solution because they just can't afford a lawyer. But anyway, we see a lot of this even in the criminal justice system, right? You're appointed a public attorney that's probably not as skilled and experienced and knows all the ins and outs of, like, if you were to be able to afford like a private attorney. So not to say that those public defenders aren't trying to do good and good people, and that they're not. There's plenty of great ones, but if you stack the deck is stacked against them, and they know it, I think. So anyway, but this is just what's emblematic in our legal system about what you can and can't afford. So to me, that's a great where LegalMente can be a solution for a lot of people. But maybe you want to comment on that, Doug. But I also want to ask you, knowing that your co-founder and CEO is a lawyer, Harvard Law School, he has over 20 years experience, I think, in the legal field. But if I'm a lawyer and I'm listening to this right now, should I be concerned, or if I'm coming out of law school or I'm in law school, should I be concerned that there's going to be less jobs for lawyers? And anyway, maybe you can comment on some of those things.
There's two topics there. Is obviously the AI paralegal, which we call para, that we patented inside of LegalMente, is there to provide legal assistance. She's obviously an AI paralegal, so she's not a lawyer. She can't provide legal advice. And many times we have actually a contact an attorney module inside of the app. So if you do need that human expert, you can contact them inside the tool. So the whole thing is not to take lawyers out entirely. It's just they bill you for every hour. If you call them on the phone, they're billing you for that time. You send them an email and they reply, they're billing you for that time. They bill you for everything. So the question is, like, if you have a question to a lawyer and you send him an email, he's going to charge you for answering that. Now, would it be cheaper to then ask that same question to AI and get not only a faster response, but a much cheaper response? Then I think people would realize that, that's a better offering. But there are some people that do need, you have to contact a lawyer for some more complicated issues, and that we do give them that option. In terms of how lawyers are, how they would receive this message, we have about one out of every 5 of our users is a lawyer, but in LegalMente, but they are coming from more of like solo and small practices, which means that they don't have as many lawyers on staff, or it's just them, is the lawyer himself. So in their minds, they're like, I have to compete with larger law firms, but I am just a single human being, or I don't have as many personnel. So I need to be able to do more with less. And they adopt this AI technology because they can do more with less at their law firm and put them at an equal playing field as their competitors. Even a solo lawyer doesn't necessarily have to hire a paralegal. Like those will cost him money if he hires a paralegal. If he can use an AI paralegal to help him with some administrative tasks, that would put him at a better footing. The lawyers that would be most repulsed by the message are the ones that are coming from the large law firms that are charging you $1,500 an hour, $2,000 an hour. Very that's their business model. And the fact of the matter is, there is AI technology out there, and Harvey is one of them, that's geared towards those elite law firms, large law firms that are charging thousands of dollars per hour. Now, you would think that those legal AI technology is going to help reduce costs for clients, for legal clients. It's not. They are trying to make those law firms even more money. You would think, logically, oh, well, if they're using AI, it should take them shorter to do it. If they're billing me for every hour, then it takes them shorter to do it, then my bill should be less. And that's not the case. We've saw some ad from Spellbook, it's also aimed at larger law firms. And they're saying, like, yes, you're going to get greater efficiency from your lawyers, and you could bill more hours per day. So some of this legal AI technology it has an audience, but it is making lawyers more money. So for them, a larger law firm will probably be like, I have no use necessarily for LegalMente AI. I'm not interested in reducing costs for my clients, and I don't need to be competing with small and solo law firms. Like, we're already elite. We're going to charge what we need to charge, and we're going to adopt this AI technology is going to help us do that. But for the solo, small practices, for entrepreneurs and small businesses, this is a much better tool for them. I would say my brother's a lawyer. I haven't gone to law school. I'm not a lawyer. I could not advise whether or not you should go into law school at this moment, but with the hefty price tag, and many lawyers who do graduate from law school don't necessarily get a profession in law. So you've spent all this money and you're not even in a law field, then you might want to reconsider that, because it's a very competitive field to be in. And if AI is going to make it even more competitive, then yeah, I mean, maybe you should think about not necessarily not becoming a lawyer, but what if you still like the law? What's another profession within the legal field that you could take on versus accumulating, thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, $100,000 in legal school debt, especially if many large law firms will make some decisions about whether or not to hire or not hire a new junior or attorney based on, like, do we have the AI capabilities in house so we don't have to hire it. So this is the thing. The other thing that in large organizations and also in at law firms, it's not going to be we're going to be gutting our workforce. They are calling it cost avoidance. It means that I don't have to hire additional personnel to take on the added workload because AI gives us a greater efficiency. So if you're just a lawyer coming in right now into the market, you're faced with that reality. They have law firms that are doing cost avoidance and trying to improve their profit margins, and they're going to do that by making sure every employed staff right now is outputting 10x, 20x, and they're like, I don't need to hire a new lawyer to take on the added work. So that's some things to consider if you're in the legal profession.
Yeah, that's all good. Well, it's interesting because I think it's enlightening there to learn that this tool that you've created, LegalMente AI, how it can be helpful to lawyers, especially the solo practitioner type lawyers, people with very small firms, small practices, not even really calling it a firm, I guess. But yeah, and how that can help them compete because, yeah, they don't have the kind of personnel that a larger firm might have, and this can get them more efficiency. So that's really great for them. And if you're a lawyer and you're listening to this and you're in that category, I mean, this is a great tool, great product. Also, I mean, I went to your website, saw the pricing. It's pretty good, even just like for just a person like that's not a lawyer, right? To come there and to be able to use it to the degree you can, because there's a lot of things that people hire lawyers for or should hire lawyers for that that don't have to be anywhere near a courtroom, right? They're just legal documentation. I mean, you could be a small nonprofit and have to file some documents and just maybe, or like an entrepreneur, like you mentioned, like we've got to deal with some legal documents, things that you have to file with the state or taxes or things like that, right? So these are these can be some things until you actually need a lawyer, right? Like, I don't think there's going to be like, at least not anytime soon. I don't think, maybe sooner than we think, but I don't think there's going to be like robot lawyer walking into court, right? Right. Like in terms of like versus like a real lawyer, like you need a real lawyer if you're in a courtroom, whether it's a criminal case, a civil case. Like you need a real lawyer. You're not going to have, hopefully we won't have a jury of robots deciding cases, right? But who knows? Maybe that would be more efficient, right? Maybe be more fair. Take the subjectivity out of every human person. But sometimes you need that subjectivity because you need that intuitive thing that maybe machines don't quite have yet, but maybe they're learning. But anyway, this is all great stuff, and how I think your product can be used in a lot of great ways using the new technologies available to us, and that you guys are really part of creating that technology.
Yeah, no, I would say that since I've been in the industry for so many years, I know what works. I know which shiny objects to avoid. I know what is novel, and then we pick on those technologies, and then that helps us sets us up for the future. So, and then of course we have our legal expert, our chief legal counsel. It's nice to have a lawyer on house who knows the law and has been practicing law for quite a while. And then one other thing I would say is that putting LegalMente aside is everybody should be learning how to use AI, how to get AI to get them to work for them. And I'm not gonna. This isn't a plug to Remix Institute, but we talked about it. But I'm just making sure that Remix Institute is one way to teach them how to learn how to use AI systems and how to think in a data-driven way, and in a very logical and reasonable way as you're making business decisions as an entrepreneur, and then educating them like, here are all the tools at your disposal as an entrepreneur. You no longer have to spend thousands of dollars in legal fees to set up your LLC or your C corp, or write an NDA for you. These are some tools at your disposal. Or if you just like, I'm not a good marketer, do I need to hire a marketer? AI could help with that too. But I think many people don't realize, hey, these what tools should I go? It's all very overwhelming. Even for me, like I'm seeing new. I have to sift through signal and noise every single day. LinkedIn is just a feed of like 90% noise, and then 10% signal of what AI tools you should really and techniques you should really be focused on. But anyway, I hope I know all the entrepreneurs as part of your community is they're trying to solve problems every day. I'm very creative at doing that. I've met several, and obviously being on the Fearless Journeys trips with you as well. So we're all going to figure it out together, and being part of this community has been very helpful. So I appreciate just kind of having a like-mindedness of everyone here. And there's no manual, there's no rule book, there's no like guide. Be like, how do I make $1 million? Right? It's like you got to figure it out, and you're just solving problems all day.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's as you know, I put in my book there, right, that you mentioned. The first characteristic I put of that all these entrepreneurs that I've come across have in common is they're problem solvers, right? And that's what I think every business is, a solution to a problem, right? And so you've identified a lot of problems here with creating LegalMente, but also using new innovation, new technology to basically solve it, be part of that solution. I'm actually thinking a lot of days that I sit here and I use a lot of this brand new technology, some that maybe people are scared about using, like different AI tools, maybe just ChatGPT, and I think about, gosh, if I was 18 years old now, this would be great. Shoot, if I was 15 years old, this would have been an amazing world to walk into at 15, which I'm sure like my parents might have thought about the internet, when they were older and saw me at 18 years old, whatever, getting the internet. And getting the access to that, and then if you go back, somebody probably thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool if I had a television when I was young, right? And now there's a television, right? So I think you kind of walk this back a lot of times, but I think the thing is, information is flowing so much faster. There's a lot of things that come, a lot of negative things that come along with information flowing too fast sometimes, and maybe people getting a little too emotional and reacting too fast, and
Mm-hmm.
especially with the news cycles is what I'm kind of referring to, right? I mean, news moves so fast now, and all across the world, you hear about something, you might be in Florida and you hear about something in Minnesota, and you're supposed to react to it because somebody put it on your screen, or on your news feed and on your smartphone, and you're just like, man, I'm just trying to get around my community here. Like, I got to react to something halfway across the world or something. So I think that sometimes the flow of information going so fast can have its negative sides too. But I do think the access to these tools and making ourselves more efficient. So I think you're spot on. It's the advice I've heard from a lot of people that work in and around these tools is just get better at using them. Don't get behind the eight ball. If you're worried that jobs are going to go away, well, guess what? They're going to go away first for the people who aren't familiar with using these tools, right, and making themselves better. But there's also going to be new jobs and new opportunities that this creates. And I think, like I said, that's why I think I would be cool if I was 15 or 18 years old right now and was moving into this world where, like, they also know how to use it like much faster because they're kind of like being born into that world. But Doug, you and I also, what's great is we talk about the Fearless Journeys community. One of the things I really try to do with this community is bring people together. So there's a lot of good relationships that are made. One of the common denominators that we've had is Alexander McCobin. I've had him on this podcast as well, and he's been in the Fearless Journeys community as well. He's now a featured innovator in the community. But Alexander's been on some group trips too. I think he actually went on the Argentina trip the year before you went on it. But you and I met at his farm in Pennsylvania a couple of years ago through his community of Liberty Ventures and Principled Business Network, and so I think there's a lot of value in being part of these sort of, for lack of a better term, networking communities, but ones that have shared values, right? So I think for Alexander, it's a shared value of a commitment to free markets, free people, free ideas, but also like capitalism and like technology and like leaning into innovation. I think for me, it's more of, just helping people build that entrepreneurial mindset, learning from others. He and I have a lot of crossover with what we're both doing. In fact, it's kind of a funny story because I was building Fearless Journeys in 2021. I start posting things on that noisy place called LinkedIn, and and I started posting about some of the trips I was doing. And Alexander and I, we've known each other since about, I think, 2009, if I remember. I met him when he was first starting Students for Liberty, and anyway, one day he just reaches out to me because we actually hadn't seen each other in a few years. I mean, COVID happened, and we live in different parts of the country, and he's just dropped me a line and said, "Hey, I see a lot of the stuff you're doing. I got some ideas. Like, I think, because in fact, he was like, Liberty Ventures, they were thinking of doing like some kind of group trips or whatever. I don't know if it's before he even probably called it Liberty Ventures, and whatever he was doing. And but he's like, man, I see you doing these group trips. Maybe we should just partner with you in some ways, right? So that's kind of how we started re-engaging that conversation. But anyway, yeah, the next year I ended up at McCobin Farms, and I don't know how you ended up there, but maybe you could elaborate a little bit more about how we met, or what brought you into that orbit as well.
All these dominoes that kind of brought us into that farm on that day, and I would just say the origin point of it was probably Ron Paul in 2008, and just watching him on the debate stage, and I'm like, well, this guy makes a ton of sense, and then he's talking about free markets, and he's really obviously an advocate for for free market economics, free market capitalism, and obviously I'm getting exposed to those ideas at a very early age. But then in 2009, when I moved to Las Vegas, I got involved in like the Ron Paul campaign. When I was there, I actually was a delegate for his 2012 presidential run. So I was a delegate that went to the RNC, which was in Tampa, which was helpful. It was in Tampa, Florida in 2012. That's when Mitt Romney got elected. But it was in Nevada. I met a lot of like-minded
he got
individuals.
nominated. He got nominated.
Yeah. He got Mitt Romney got nominated. Yeah. But it was in Nevada is where I started to meet this like-minded network of people, and it was one of those gentlemen that I met, and I've had a friendship to this day. He actually introduced me to Alexander McCobin. So it was Nick Gosling is the one that gave me the introduction to Alexander, and then met Alexander one time over a Zoom chat, and then he was saying, "Hey, I have this McCobin, like we're doing." This was like a few months before the Mountain Madness, and he said, "Hey, we're having this. Would you be interested in joining?" And then sure, like I'll go out there and check it out. I'm always up for anything. So whether something good or bad comes out of it doesn't matter. It's always an adventure. Going to Argentina, had no idea what to expect. Had never been there before. Was able to turn it into really good experience. Not only just the Argentina, I spent a day in Uruguay and Montevideo, and that was nice. I'm like, wow, this is actually. I would never have decided to flown to Uruguay if I was not in Argentina. A lot of things to just get exposed and learn, but you got to put yourself there first. So that's how we ended up in McCobin's farm in the middle of nowhere. And it's like, it really is. It just reminded me of like, it was when it's outside, it's so dark and it's so pitch black. You barely, if you don't have a flashlight, you can't even see your hand. That's how. It's a nice farm. It's just like it's so out there, and I'm like, how did I get here? But then, obviously made good connections there. So I would say that's never be afraid to kind of go somewhere because you're not familiar with the terrain. Like you don't know what's going to happen. So
yeah, I think that I mentioned entrepreneurs, right? Problem solvers, but I think entrepreneurs are also people that take action. And action could be on your entrepreneurial project, but action actually translates to every different parts of your life. So I think getting out of your comfort zone, right? I don't know, other than Alexander McCobin, maybe, did you know anybody else there prior to going there?
I mean, I don't think I knew anybody there. Obviously, I'd seen, I think he's the CEO of Strive Asset. I'd never met him before, but I had seen him before. And then obviously at the time, Vivek Ramaswamy was still in the presidential race. still in the primary. So, obviously works at Vivek's asset fund. So that's the only connection I had, but I had never met him before, and obviously wanted to get introduced and met him
So
there. So everybody there was brand new, except for McCobin, who had met like just a few meetings before.
yeah, I think everybody there was brand new to me too. I'm trying to remember. I get confused. I don't was Lucho there that day? I don't remember. Um,
Yeah, he
but
was there, and then he also
he
was
was
in
there, right?
Argentina
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah, so I had met Lucha prior, but through so okay, maybe I knew Alexander and Lucha, right? But I think the thing is like sometimes you get an invite to somewhere and you're like, and maybe it's a Fearless Journeys trip, like whatever, and you're like, okay, there's this thing, but like I only know Francisco, um, I only know Alexander, whatever. You feel a little bit out of your comfort zone. I think there's a lot of people that might feel a little intimidated, or maybe just going to a conference or like showing up at some happy hour in your local city that you got, an invite to. Well, I don't know anybody there. Well, that's the point. Like the point is, this is an opportunity to meet lots of new people and just get yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit. And you might make one connection. There might be 50 people in the room at that happy hour. You might make one connection, and then maybe go grab coffee with that person, another day, or you get on a call with them, whatever it is, and you make those connections, and then those things can just. I mean, look at. I chose to. I mean, first of all, like you said, it was also going to Alexander's place is very not easy to get to if you're like in Florida, right, or somewhere else in the country. Like, not this is in the middle of Pennsylvania. You can't really fly. You got to take at least a connecting flight to get there if you want to get somewhat close, but you're still going to get in a car and drive at least an hour and a half from whatever airport. I chose to be like, let's see. I want to go from wherever I was flying from. I think it was Fort Lauderdale or something. I'll go to Newark, and then I'll get in a car and I'll drive like 3 hours across Pennsylvania. And I stopped at Scranton on the way because I'm such a dork about The Office, and wanted to see where it was set, even though it wasn't filmed there. Also stopped by Joe Biden's house that he was born into when he was a child. So there were some cool things along the way, but it was you gotta fly a few hours, and you gotta get in a car, and then you gotta drive a few hours, and then you're in the middle of this farm, and it was cool. But once you're there, you're like, this is a really great setting. I don't know, it's like 50 acres, I think. Um, but also not knowing anybody. But look, I mean, if I could say anything else, just making the connection with you, Doug, was worth all of that travel and getting out of my comfort zone to go and meet people. And not only have we become great friends, and now you're a guest on the podcast, but you've come down to Argentina, and we've connected in Orlando. And I said the only thing I was sad about meeting you when I did in what was that, in 2023? It must have been that we met.
Yeah.
Yeah. I said it's just too bad I didn't know you when I lived in Orlando, where you live, now. So, but luckily I get to see you when I come visit there, and actually, I've seen you on some of your visits through South Florida. So hopefully we'll get you on another Fearless Journeys trip soon.
Hey, we gotta hit up that rum bar with the cigars, so just gotta.
In
I missed out
Orlando,
on
right?
the Dominican Republic trip. So you guys were enjoying cigars and probably some good Dominican rum. So I missed out on that. So I'll have to make up for that. So.
But speaking of travel, so we talked about getting out of your comfort zone with going to engaging events like McCobin Farms, the Mountain Madness that he did. But you're also quite the traveler, and based in this new world that we live in, I mentioned before, travel is less expensive than it's ever been in terms of our time and our efforts to get places, and I mean, in terms of the way things have come down in price and how you can travel somewhere. But also, we have the ability to basically, a lot of us work from almost anywhere, and especially the kind of work you do on technology. I don't know if you have people you physically work with in some of these places you travel and work remote from, but tell us a little bit about what travel means to you, whether it's through remote work or whether it's through business travel, or whether it's through combining kind of personal and business travel. Tell me what do you like so much about travel, and how do you benefit from it?
I would say the number one thing that I like about travel is just learning about new places, new cultures, and being exposed to things that you would not be if you were staying at home all day. I obviously I would caution about traveling too much. You have to do it right. I think if you travel enough, you realize what are the hacks and sort of the low cost ways of traveling. But I also live in Orlando too, so I see people at Disney World and Universal Studios. That's their vacation. They're spending money they don't have, and they're putting it on buy now, pay later, and that's not a good way to travel, right? You shouldn't be financially irresponsible just to travel. But what I have we're a global company, and by that for a couple of reasons. We have a global workforce distributed throughout the world. Our AI is knows global laws, it knows U.S. laws, it's multilingual. Our co-founder, our CEO Jose, he speaks 5 languages. He has clients all around the world as well. So to kind of constrain yourself to the U.S. market, you're probably gonna lose out on a lot of opportunities. But you would know that if you're not traveling. You can't meet these people in, you just on your phone, right? You have to kind of go out and like you said, put yourself out there. You wouldn't know if you're not in that space, and good connections can be formed. Sometimes they don't, and it fizzles out, and you don't get, there's no network, there's no relationship that can get built. That's fine too, but you have to trial and error. Things are gonna things would pan out. So I think that's been helpful for me. Obviously, we were recently in Vancouver, and we were attending a tech conference there, and from there we not only built talked to some interested investors, talked with interested customers, of course, like that's one benefit, but we were also able to find other entrepreneurs in different countries that are all coming together for this international conference, and find out what they do and see how we can help each other, right? So then we made some good contacts, and I was telling you about some of the contacts we made in El Salvador, which now we're partnering with, and that so that's though I wouldn't have been exposed to that if I hadn't traveled. I couldn't do a Google search and find these guys. Maybe I could. Maybe they're just really good at search engine optimization, but I don't think so. And I don't think Google would surface me some some firm in El Salvador. But that's sort of been the benefit, is that you are going to find hidden gems, and you're going to be exposed to opportunities. And I can't tell you that it's all going to pan out. Like, you could go to a conference in Doha and say, "Oh, I'm going to get a bunch of opportunities." It all depends on how much work and output you put into it. But it's also very possible that you go there and nothing pans out, and you didn't get anything. But that's okay, right? And then you might be thinking to yourself, I spent all this money going over there. But no, that's just part of the experiment. The next place, when you go there, to do it, how to do it better. And so that's how we approach it. Just gotta be open-minded.
Yeah, that's great. So speaking of travel, what has been, if you want to pick one, if you want to pick a couple, I'll let you do that, because I know people ask me this question all the time, and it's hard to answer. But what has been some of your maybe top places that you've liked in your past travel experiences, and why? What kind of stood out to you?
Okay, so yeah, I haven't been to as many countries as you. I did like my travels to Asia and Malaysia. When I went there, was Kuala Lumpur was a surprisingly very entrepreneurial and business friendly city, and very easy to network and get patched in within just a few days. And it helps that everybody speaks English, so that surprised me. That was one country where I was like, okay, that's really nice. Uruguay, even though I didn't really I couldn't make any business contacts there, was still very surprising about how that city's all laid out. Good food, good culture, a little bit lower, slower paced. I couldn't tell you what the business climate is. I didn't spend enough time. Peru was nice, in Cusco area. There's so much to explore in Peru. I want to spend more time there next time. in Thailand, in the north specifically, not like in Bangkok, it's very serene. You go over there and it's a much slower pace and lower cost of living, of course, and you get to um, it's a good place to get inspired too. A lot of good out mountains and nice Buddhist temples, for example. You can go up there and come out with a whole bunch of new set of ideas. And the only expensive part of a trip to Thailand is the flight. Once you're over there, it's really cheap. I think it just comes down to any one of these countries, what I just mentioned: Peru, Malaysia, Thailand. The most expensive part is the flight. Once you're there, it's not so bad. Um, those are the ones that stood out. I also like Northern Ireland too, a lot just because of its history, and it's actually a hidden gem in my opinion. But again, no business contacts made there. It was more just to kind of like study the history of Northern Ireland and absorb the beauty of the Irish the western part of Ireland. But yeah, those were a couple ones that stood out to me.
Well, that's good. Well, the only place I've been to in Asia is China, and that was about 12 years ago. But yeah, I've heard from you and multiple other people. Thailand seems to be something that a lot of people really all love, and I think the maybe one of the great advices you gave there too is to not necessarily stay in the big city of Bangkok, but to go out to some other areas and enjoy some of the natural beauty of these places. I think Peru, yeah, I mean, I've been to Peru and it's an amazing country. I loved you kind of think of Machu Picchu and that was amazing, but I guess like the surprising thing was the city you go to before there, right? Cusco. Getting used to that 12,000 feet altitude though was something. Just one glass of wine needed, no more. And anyway, but yeah, I remember the plane landing from Lima to Cusco, and like I feel like my ears didn't quite pop, because like I'm still at 12,000 feet. Like normally, like 10,000 feet is when they tell you to turn the devices off or whatever, and I'm like, we haven't even gotten that low yet. So in terms of the altitude, the sea level. But anyway, no, but these are some really great places, and you went to Uruguay on a day on your own, but the year before we took 5 days on our group trip to Uruguay, and we did get to learn a little bit about the business environment. We actually visited a free trade zone. I believe there's 13 of those in Uruguay, but we learned about it's a reason why it's actually the most free and democratic country in the Americas, I think, including compared to the United States. Now, they just had some recent elections there, so I have no idea. Things can change in Latin America fast. But it's a very prosperous small country right between, big socialist Brazil and quasi-socialist Argentina.
Yeah.
And it's like this other little like example, shining star, and Brazilians and Argentinians go there and enjoy it. So at least the wealthy ones that can afford it. But
Right.
I'd say Uruguay reminded me a lot in terms of economically on par with the United States, but just a little country. We also got to see some great wine vineyards there as well. But anyway, yeah, that's a surprising country, and one that we did because it was like, it's right there, it's right by Argentina, and actually the Atlas Network was having a conference there, and I knew some people that were going to be there that said they would stay for a Fearless Sureties trip if I did one. So I said, all right, we'll do one. We'll start there. We'll go to Argentina afterwards. So that's what we did. But anyway, yeah, surprising country. But yeah, we have I think you and I share a great passion for travel in the sense that it's not just to go somewhere and have fun. That's great. But it's also to get different perspectives, to learn. I think we both approach travel from like a learning and curiosity kind of mindset. And I think those are the things that, again, build the entrepreneur mindset, right? That attention to lifelong learning and always sparking your curiosity. That's going to help translate to being a problem solver, taking action, all these sorts of things, and building great companies like LegalMente AI. So, Doug, feel free to add any final comments, but I do want to land the plane here a little bit. No pun intended on the travel speak, but if you feel free to make some final comments, but also I want you to let the listeners know where they could find you, LegalMente, and the Remix Institute.
Yeah, so LegalMente, you can find us on www.legalmente.ai if you wanted to learn more. We have a client concierge AI agent who can answer your questions if we're not able to get to you. So that's available on the website. And if you want to learn how to start to think about AI and apply in your day to day, that's where you can kind of go to Remix Institute. And then again, that is www.remixinstitute.com. Search me on Douglas Pestana, LinkedIn, X. If you want to connect there, but and then let me know if you heard this. If there's anything that we can help you with, you're part of the Fearless Journeys community. It's all about that. I'll figure out what we can do, what insights we can lend, and what tips we can give you, and how we can help you out. So we're all part of this community and all in this entrepreneurial grind, I guess. So we're all in the thick of it, and we'd love to help out in any way that we can, and we'd love to hear from anybody that hears this podcast, and we'll hopefully get connected sometime in the future, maybe in person at one of your Fearless Journeys events.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I do want to also just let people know I will put all of these links that Doug mentioned, including links to his personal pages, in the show notes here. So if you didn't hear all that, just go into the show notes and you can find it. And I also do recommend connecting with Doug online, because even just on a passing day opening X and seeing something he's posting that's just information that I wasn't even looking for, but it's like, it's just like little things that make you go, and also your webinars are really great. That's through the Remix Institute, right? And just there's one thing I've noticed with AI, and the other hat I wear is I run the Economic Club of Miami, and so there's a lot of people working in tech in Miami that are part of our club, and man, the AI space, it's like every 3 months, it's like something has just changed incredibly, right? And it's just new things, new tools, new ways people are using it, and it's just a constant educational process. So I think that lends credence to like your Remix Institute, what you're doing in terms of just like providing education for people directly from somebody who's working in this space every day. You don't have to go to college. You don't have to sit through and sift through YouTube videos, right? You can actually have experts like Doug, who is in the field and is like taking a pause in a sense from what he's doing with LegalMente to basically say, hey, let me give you some updates on what you should be thinking about in terms of how to use these AI tools to your advantage today in August of 2025, and then in January of 2026 something's going to be different that we didn't see coming. The AI didn't predict for us. But anyway, it's a lot of great stuff. So Doug, I just want to say thank you for sharing all of that stuff, and I want to thank you for being on the Agents of Innovation podcast, and thank you for being an agent of innovation.
Thank you so much, Francisco. Thanks for having me, and it's been a pleasure.